Hello, it's Scott Manley here. Yesterday, the developers of Kerbal Space Program released another free update which included the ability to do repairs and maintenance on your spacecraft in flight. But I actually want to focus on a couple of small new additions, new flags. And I want to talk to one of the people that made this possible.
So today we have Peter Beck with us from Rocket Lab, and the reason is, obviously I've always wanted to talk to you because you're a very cool rocket person, but I asked you during a Q&A a few months ago, when can we have Rocket Lab logos in Kerbal Space Program? And you delivered!
Well, I mean, if you ask, you shall receive.
Rocket Lab, you've had a great year. This is my Kerbal version. It's not quite perfect for many technical reasons, but mostly because we can't paint things black in Kerbal.
Right.
So we've had a lot of approximations, but this should actually fly for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, you know, we do have...
Awesome. Oh, and pitch over, yep, nice.
Yeah, 9 rocket engines on the bottom there, just like the real Electron.
Very nice.
And Rocket Lab, the Electron, it uses Rutherford engines, which... Well, they're the first rocket engine I found that had electric-powered turbopumps, right? Correct. How did that come about?
Well, really, when we started designing the vehicle, we tried to design for high-volume manufacturing and ultra-high... Oh, jeepers, Scott, that's a bit grim. Your guidance algorithm's not good there.
Oh, dear.
But no. But we never want to see that happen.
No.
But no, ultimately we're looking for the most reliable, simplest design possible. And the beauty about the Rutherford engine is, you know, because it's an electric turbo pump cycle, you can have ultimate flexibility over throttle, ultimate flexibility over oxygen fuel ratio. So, you know, the vehicle runs in a closed loop control where we're optimizing OF, and we actually suck the tanks completely dry. So, you know, in a small launch vehicle, that's really important. But the really cool thing is all of the startup and shutdown, it's all just controlled in software. So if you look at a Rutherford engine, it's devoid of lots of actuated valves and sensors. It's a pretty clean engine. And that's because all the valves are kind of passive blowover valves. We control everything by the turbo pump, or the electric pump, I should say. So it's a very, very software-rich solution, which means it's wonderful to manufacture. And we've put 170 Rutherfords in space, it makes them very simple to manufacture.
Yeah, I mean, did you find that it was hard to sell people on an electrically pumped engine back when you were starting Rocket Lab, or was it, because there hadn't been any history really before that?
No, I mean, but look, let's be honest, there was no history of private orbital launch sites or full carbon composite liquid vehicles, and we did a lot of stuff, fully fiber optic networked flight computers, and we did a lot of things in there that were really unique, and we were really about how do we go about solving this problem in the best way possible. And you probably saw that from first flight through to commercial operations, it's not like we had to do massive block upgrades or reinvent the vehicle. The vehicle was designed for manufacture and designed for reliability from day one. So there's been very little change, which is what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that you have actually made significant upgrades, like due to battery improvements, you've managed to up the maximum payload.
Oh no, I was saying the heaviest one we lifted was about 185 kgs for the US Air Force a year or so ago.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm obviously flying this, and I've neglected to talk. So
this is cool.
Yeah, this is totally simulated. The only thing about Kerbal is that to make things easy, they shrink down the size of the planets. And you know what? I've flattened out my trajectory too much. But we're going to get into orbit. We're maybe a little...
We better get into orbit, Scott. We better get into orbit. I'll be very disappointed.
I clicked the wrong button. That's why the thing flipped around. There's... The point prograde button is right next to the point retrograde button. That's why the rocket decided to aim at the ground. It's just like that, proton rocket that failed. Obviously, the
Yes,
complete opposite of the Electron. Right?
yes, exactly.
But yeah, we're going to get into space. I'm just having to
Have you got a
compensate.
photon? Have you got a photon on the top of that?
Yes, this is actually a deep space version of the Photon. It's actually getting enough
Or
delta V to go to the moon, so we could do that if you want.
Well, it'd
I mean, what else
be
would you
great to
like to
see it in
do?
simulation. Well, you know me, Scott. I'm dead set on Venus. So if we can run we run the Venus mission, then that'll make me very happy.
Oh, wow, I actually you have to sit and watch me do some orbital mechanics, which would be kind of difficult, but let's get this one into orbit, and we'll see
Yeah,
what we can do. There we go. We just popped off the second stage, and we're going to need to use the photon to actually get into orbit, but we'll be fine. So yeah, you have two different variants of the photon, at least, right?
correct. The little one and the big one. Yeah, the kind of the Leo version and then the interplanetary version. Yeah.
There we go. So we got this thing, and we can take it to orbit. Um, and so they
Nice.
have basically one has a lot more propellant in it, right? I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So the high energy version obviously carries more propellant. It also has the Hyper Curie engine, which is even a higher performing engine than the Curie engine.
Is
That propulsion system is really the enabler to do these deep space and planetary missions. So Curie pretty much runs in bipropellant mode all the time now, but it can run in monopropellant mode. Hypercurie is a hypergol version, so we've blended the fuels there for hypergolic use. So it can also be purely hypergolic.
and I guess in bipropellant mode you get better specific impulse overall, and that helps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, way better. Yep. Yep.
way better. So we got this thing into orbit. I think we might be in a position to try to take this to the Kerbal version of Venus. As I said, I'd have to do some orbital mechanics, but we have enough delta V here.
Excellent.
Yeah. So you're aiming, what, 2023 for that?
Yeah. I mean, we've got the moon mission sort of midway through next year, and some other exciting missions. So we have a propellant depot mission for NASA where we're putting a big liquid oxygen tank on orbit. So lots of really exciting missions, and some that we'll be able to talk a little bit more in detail. But the Venus mission is of course really close to my heart.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just
May 23 is when it needs to launch for minimum transit time and energy for the trajectory.
yeah. I'm gonna have to trim my orbit to try and get it close to this, which mostly works by guesswork in this game. So you sort of throw out your orbit and adjust it to try and get it close. I actually, did degrees in physics and astronomy, and I'm still guessworking my way around these. But you didn't do any academic work to get to your expertise with rockets, right? You just started messing around.
Yeah, I mean the plan was always to go to university, but I guess opportunities kept presenting themselves that I never really got there. But you can learn things in the classroom. You can also learn the same things in real life. And I started off as a tool and die maker, and then moved into the design office and started designing production machinery and production lines, then products, and then moved into the analyst team doing CFD and FEA, and then went to a government lab where I was doing advanced materials and structures as a test engineer, and then a research engineer, and that's where a lot of the composites expertise and experience came from. So you can learn these things in an alternative path, and it probably wasn't the path that I planned, but it all kind of worked out in the end.
So I mean, you were always thinking about rockets in your head, but
Yeah.
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 So your first rockets you built were peroxide based.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, no, the very first rocket engine was a hydrogen peroxide, and I bought peroxide at 50% concentration and built a bubble reactor column and in a wee garden shed out the back, and distilled it to 92 and built my first peroxide engine. Gee, when was that? It was a long time ago. I just left school and I started mucking around with peroxide. Peroxide's a great propellant, but you need a tremendous amount of respect with peroxide.
Oh yeah. I hear stories of the, British Black Arrow plants where anyone working would have somebody standing nearby with a hose with water running. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating because you basically learned all your stuff by messing around. And one of the things about Kerbal Space Program that has been very powerful, this game, it's been great for people that are interested to mess around with your rockets in some form or another. They're obviously virtual rockets, but you can learn a lot about the design, the orbital mechanics, things like that. So I'm an academic, but I got into a position where this was a good way for me to try teaching and learning about the thing.
I'm pretty impressed that you can hold an interview and also do all the orbital mechanic computation at the same time. That's pretty impressive there, Scott.
Well, the computer's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me. My mind was blown when you said that you were going to do stage recovery.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was all about trying to find the solutions that would close for this kind of system, and we use the atmosphere to our advantage. Excuse me. We use the atmosphere to our advantage, and it's really a lot of it is about trying to sit in that wake of the shockwave when we have the atmospheric interface, and trying to sit in behind there and with the blunt body of the heat shield propagate all of that far enough forward that the heating is at manageable loads. That's actually really the hard bit. The parachutes, yep. I mean, we're deploying parachutes at Mark II and thereabouts, but I mean that's been done before. Parachutes is a whole topic we could spend a whole program on in itself. But really, the tricky thing here is trying to keep that thing guided and stable, and the heat loads on the stage low enough to make it successful.
Yeah, I remember your presentation. You described the shock interface as a plasma knife.
Yeah,
that was a beautiful description. Yeah, we're going through that right now here.
Nice. Yep.
The physics in Kerbal isn't quite as brutal as the real thing. But I love the fact...
Looks like you got good RCS authority there. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, it looks nice, and you can actually ruin your spacecraft by hitting the atmosphere too hard. But I have a little drogue chute on this to stabilize it.
Very nice.
Yeah. So, because of course the gas... You have thrusters to rotate it around, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
And then once we get low enough, we can deploy a bigger parachute, and that will eventually bring us down into the water. And so you did this on... Which launch was it?
Not the last one, but the one before. So Return to Sender, Flight 15. Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to say, we saw it, and you kept on posting some pictures from it, and they were all amazing pictures. I just kept, why can't you show us the bottom of the rocket?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of secret sauce down there, look, the heat shield, we made almost no modifications to the heat shield, so the heat shield that was on that vehicle was designed for ascent, not descent. And not surprisingly, that heat shield, wasn't a whole lot left of it when we got down. So it exposed a lot of the detail around the engines, and you'll never find a photo of what we call the power pack, which is really all the magic of the engines down the bottom. So if the heat shield was intact, we'd no problems. But we're really not comfortable in showing all of the technology with the batteries and the electric pumps and everything down there. So unfortunately, we aren't able to post those. But we keep the heat shield on, then we're going to be absolutely fine.
You did show an absolutely marvelous video of the stage separation from inside, though, and
yeah,
and you had sound.
Great, wasn't it? Yep.
it's great to have sound on these things.
Sound is one of those things that is always forgotten. So one of the the instruments that we're flying on the Venus probe is a microphone. Images are wonderful, but there's so much more context to an image with audio. So for the Venus probe interface into the atmosphere, we're going to carry a microphone.
That's great, because interplanetary spacecraft, we keep on missing that. So actually, this is a Kerbal version of something from your history. It's a rocket-powered bike. It's not. It's a trike, technically. It's very hard to steer.
Oh, that's cheating.
Oh dear.
Just like the real thing.
No. Oh dear. Okay. Well, thankfully, that didn't happen to you.
Yeah. It is. The rocket bikes it's a wonderful sensation because, like on a motorbike, there's always a gear changer, so there's a momentary lapse in acceleration as you change the gear.
Yeah.
With a rocket bike, the bike is getting lighter and lighter and lighter as you're consuming the fuel. So the acceleration, even though you've got more aerodynamic resistance, the acceleration is just pulling harder and harder and harder. It's by far an incredible sensation. It's hard. I've never had it replicated in anything.
Yeah. So plans for next year for Rocket Lab?
Yeah, next year is a big year. I mean, the moon mission is going to be a huge one for us, and we got a really full manifest. So we've got to really hold our cadence here of one a month all through next year, or even higher. The factory is spitting a complete vehicle out every 30 days now, or sometimes even quicker than that. I think the record is 18 days. So we've just got a tremendous amount to get launched, and the space systems division is grown enormously. We have a number of new spacecraft that are in various forms of design and manufacture. So yeah, next year is going to be. It's going to be a huge year. Yeah.
Well, looking forward to that for sure. And it's been amazing. 14 years since Rocket Lab started.
Yeah, so I started the company in 2007. But really, the Electron program, I raised the first amount of money to go and build Electron in 2014. It took us about 4 years, 3 years to get to first flight, and 3.5 years to get to first orbit. But it seems a very, very long time ago now. I'm sure everything is either slowing down or speeding up, one or the other.
Yeah. And one thing I have to ask, by the way, is all your flights have very cool names, fun names. How often do you have a hand in picking those?
Well, we run a completely democratic process here at Rocket Lab, but generally it does arrive on my desk, so it's democratic to a point.
So you have veto power.
Yeah, veto power. Yeah.
I mean, have you ever had to use that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We have a very active list of names that ones that we would just love to call, but know that it's just a step too far. So veto has been exercised on a number of occasions, but look, it's such an incredibly serious business and such a huge investment of people's time and effort and capital. So it just always seemed to us that there needs to be at least something that's a little bit lighthearted, and that was what we chose.
Yeah, I mean, I loved that the third launch was It's Business Time, because I'm a huge fan of the Flight of the Conchords. Just disappointed it never flew on Wednesday night. Which was
I know.
Thanks for making life and rockets fun, and thanks for letting us use your logos in Kerbal Space Program.
Oh, it's an honor, really.
You're there in a little other universe. So, yeah. So this is Peter Beck. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.